Buon pomeriggio.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting entitled There Where the Eyes Are Palpitating. We have here Giuseppe Frangi, who is a journalist and the president of the Giovanni Testori Foundation, who will take us through a few works, especially the work of one of the greatest artists of our time, a giant of the art market, in order to look for a sign of that wonder that introduces us to the sublime that is mentioned by Eschel in the meeting's title this year. The path that we will be led through by Giuseppe Frangi today is linked with the contemporary art supported by Casa Testori, directed by Giuseppe Frangi with Luca Fiore, Davide Allombra, Francesca Lardelli, who developed this path lately, and this is a journey that started in 2015 with an exhibition, Keep the Fire Alive, the surprises of contemporary art, where we could actually see the great installations and performances of artists like Marina Abramovic and many others like Alberto Garutti, who was a guest of the meeting. In 2017, we had another exhibition, The Passage of Enia, the artist who recognize the authors of the past and translate the work of the past into something new, like Émile Esgro with the cancellation of Mandoni's pages. And then last year we had another exhibition entitled Now, When a Work of Art is Born, that actually enabled us to take part in the creative moment of a work of art. We saw the materials, the energy, the time needed by 7 young artists who communicated, who had a relationship with the visitors of the exhibition, in front of a great work of art by Mario Schifano, La Chimera, which was created in front of a public, of an audience, in a square in Florence in 1985. So thanks to the exhibitions I just quoted and the journey led by Giuseppe Frangi, we learned a lot about contemporary art, not only because we were able to overcome the prejudice of contemporary art. I could have done it myself, but also because we actually saw it as an activity that touches upon the life of everyone and actually gives a voice to existential questions that are always part of human hearts, like the space of the unforeseen and unpredictable that reinforces the feeling of being alive. Just to quote an important author, the artist is seen as someone that arrives or that does something before anyone else, understands before anyone else something different, and is actually surprised by this, and there is a relationship between the artist and the visitors. So this actually made it possible for us to have the same gaze of children in front of reality as the Pope said in his opening speech for this meeting, that is to say, wonder, something that is very important in this very difficult moment in history. It is important to catch the science of the sublime, the mystery that is the root and the basis of everything. So, well, now the word to Giuseppe Frangi.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti, ciao a tutti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Letizia that has not mentioned the name of the artist. So, well, I am not actually the director of Casa Testori. Davide Dall'Ombra is the director. I am the founder, actually, just to be precise. When the friends of meeting asked me to work at the title of this year in relationship with contemporary art, I was actually a bit worried because the categories of the sublime are very difficult to be traced and to be defined as explicit categories in the experience of many artists, since currently art is actually in a way touched by a sense of negativity. So even if I love art, I have to admit that this is the situation. We could have tried to find a simpler path, but that did not satisfy me, because there are artists today who can actually create works that are born of a wonder in front of the real world, but they also create wonder in those who look at them. And I can quote a few examples. The drawing by Christo on the Lake Iseo in 2016, a performance that was experienced by 1 million people, and this actually enhanced the beauty of this scenery and made people understand the mystery of that beauty that sometimes went unnoticed. Another great artist, James Tyrrell, has acquired a volcano in Arizona, and he's working on it hardly, with great effort. And what is his purpose? To bring the sky closer to the earth, so that people who will be visiting this volcano will feel close to the sky. Or there is another example, quite known, popular. Olaf Eliasson in 2003 in the Tate Modern Gallery lighted up this sun that you can see, fascinating the thousands of people who stopped to look at something that often we are just taken for granted. So the beauty and the great power of the sun. So these are three great artists that actually express a great ambition, a great poetic skill that actually is then translated into technically extraordinary works. But today we wanted to take a different kind of journey. It is a more intimate journey that concerns one of the authors and artists that are extremely important for our times, and a very appreciated artist. A journey that is due to the fact that recently, in 2018, and you can see it now on Amazon Prime, a movie was published, which is called A Work Without an Author. So this is a very special artist, a giant of contemporary art, even though he doesn't have spectacular examples to give. He's Gerhard Richter. He's a German artist, a painter mainly, but not only a painter. He was born in Dresden in 1932. He lives in Cologne at the moment. So a movie was made on him. That's directed by von Donnesmarck. and who also directed The Lives of Others, that was awarded the Oscar for the best foreign movie a few years ago. So this is the film that, as you will see, the title itself, A Work Without Author, is extremely important. It is connected to a biography that is not very well known. The life of Richter was quite dramatic, as we will see today. So this film, this movie, goes back to the beginning of this adventure of Richter's life through a biography that was not recognized by Richter himself, in which, however, some details emerged that even Richter himself did not know. So this film is based on this biography and touches upon a certain period of time, that is to say, the life of Richter in Dresden. So you will not see Richter's name in the film. The name of the main character is Kurt Banner. This is the actor. But, well, the story is that of Gerhard Richter, with some differences needed by the director to make the whole situation more spectacular. The artist did not acknowledge this film, but this does not mean that the film is less important, because it really helps to understand Richter's work better. The experience of wonder that I will try to corroborate through some of Richter's works connected to history. In the life of this great German artist, history plays a very important role. So a few aspects so that we understand better his life. He was born in 1932 in Dresden, that is to say, during the time of the Nazis, and his aunt, whom he loved very much, Marianne Schönfelder, was schizophrenic and was a victim of the eugenetic sanitary strategy of Nazism. One of her life was one of those lives that the Nazis thought were not worth living. She was first sterilized and then she was killed in unknown ways in a psychiatric hospital, Hansdorf, where she spent the last years of her life. With the arrival of the Russians, and that is to say after 1945, his aunt died in 1943, a few days before the dramatic bombing in Dresden. Well, with the arrival of the Russians, Richter starts to do what he wanted to do. He starts studying at the academy in Dresden, and he meets with a certain success because he was very good, technically speaking, and he has is commissioned a few important public works. This is the woman Richter married in 1957. Well, obviously, this is the actress in the film. Anyway, he actually has different commissions by the new regime that governed in Eastern Germany at the time. And this was a great acknowledgement of his skills at public level. These works no longer exist because in 1961, Richter decided to move to West Germany a few months before the construction of the wall. In 1957, he married Marianne Häufinger. As I said, this is the actress in the film who plays the role of Richter's first wife. And together they decided to move west, so to move to the other side. So all these frescoes were then cancelled, erased, because he was seen as a traitor, even though Richter never explained, never justified this decision to move to the West with political ideologies. It doesn't move to the West because of the freedom you can enjoy there. But just because in 1958, when the frontier was still open, he was at Documenta in Kassel, which is a very important contemporary art event that takes place every 5 years, and it is, well, a giant stage where the newest forms of art are presented, are introduced to the public. In 1958, Richter, who was linked to Soviet realism, his background was very technical, and that gave him his first success. He arrived in Documenta and found out something that was beyond his imagination at the time, and he was particularly impressed by the works by Jackson Pollock and Lucio Fontana, presented that year in Documenta in Kassel, in Germany. Richter says, and I quote, "I was fascinated by their courage, and I could say that these paintings are the reason why I decided to leave Eastern Germany." What did he mean by this? These were radical works, he said. So these were artists that went to the roots of the reason why they were artists. They went beyond what they had learned, and they actually expressed the language of the artists in that period of time after the war. The language artists have had to use to speak to the world, to say something new. So this was a radical artistic experience where radicality is given by the reasons why one becomes an artist. So this is why Richter can no longer live within the schemes of of Eastern Germany, and decides in February 1961 to move to Western Germany through the Berlin Underground, which was still working at the time between the east and the west of the city. Once he arrived in Western Germany, he could have chosen among different academies for artists, but at the moment there were so many talents in Germany, and he decided to choose probably the most difficult academy, even though he had actually shown his painting skills in the east of Germany. So this is to say, the Düsseldorf Academy. In that year, in Düsseldorf, one of the greatest prophets of modern art started to teach there. Joseph Boy, you can see them in the picture there. He became then a reference in terms of theater and art for the avant-garde of the whole world. Like, for instance, Boyce Lloyd for European artists. He was a visionary artist who actually widened the field of art. So Richter chooses the most difficult path, that is to say, an academy that will certainly provide him with great difficulties, because he will have to start from the beginning in a way. So this is a picture from the film where the director sees this actor during these very difficult months at Düsseldorf Academy, where the artist tries to understand how to start again. So you can see the white canvas. So this is an important aspect in his life where the artist doesn't take anything for granted, and he says in 1962, so he started to attend the academy in 1961, to exist means to struggle for form and survival. So this is actually the search for new forms as a painter. So he didn't want to give in to the painting skills he used to have well, actually had provided him with a great success at the beginning. I hate the wonder that is generated by skills, because the skills one might have are not enough to produce art. It is too easy, he said, to get distracted by manual skills and to forget the image. So what is this image? We will be talking about this in a while. And then, and I quote again, we need to go beyond what is planned and granted by one's skills. So this is some kind of mystic exercise against himself in front of this white canvas. So, well, now we understand this paradox of this title, a work of art without an author. And Richter explains this in a different way. He says clearly, that is to say, to make things happen instead of creating them. So this is what the artist should do. He should make something happen on the white canvas and not rather than creating something. So there is a very beautiful quotation from Cézanne, who said that the artist's problem is not that of creating, but to be part of a creating mechanism. So creativity in a way is something that is a mystery, so to speak. So these are moments when, well, if I can quote another artist of the 20th century, Matisse, the artist perceives that it's not his hand that acts, but rather someone has taken him by the hand. And Matisse said this when he was creating the chapel in Vence. And I felt like someone had taken me by the end. So this doesn't mean to do less. It means to be a whole artist, a complete artist. So this is a situation that is shared also by Mart Rothko as well, who said in a very, well, dramatic, direct way, a work of art is not the expression of the self, but rather a revelation, and the artist is just a witness to this revelation of a deeper level of knowledge of the real life. And to go back to Richter, he actually admits my paintings are more intelligent than I am. So on the canvas there is something that goes beyond what I had planned.
È un processo di azzerato.
This is a process of, so to say, nullification, which also raises another issue. In ancient times, in the heart of history, in the history of art, the issue was always the topic, the theme, but the theme is zeroed. The artist no longer has a theme. He no longer has a precise task entrusting him with a theme. So the theme is also part of this action of zeroing that the artist is experimenting. And the same Richter also says that that's the prerequisite and the certainty of what you need to paint. So there is some kind of a random effect, and that's at the very base of the first picture he painted in 1962, which basically came out that happened by chance. So he had in his hands an issue of Domos with the portrayal of a table designed by Ignazio Gardella, an Italian designer. That's painting number 1 in Richter's catalogue. And actually, you only see the whiteboard of the extendable table. So the look is that of a monolith that is kind of characterized by wild painting. So you can instinctively see the sign of that fight that we were hinting at before. And the impression afterwards is that of a genesis, of a labor and of a birth. So that's a new beginning that has all the characteristics of being an official event. This site, the site of Richter basically indicates this painting as painting number 1. This word basically Richter has kind of zeroed and cancelled everything he had done before. That's the onset of an extraordinary sequence which stems from the fact that reality is shown to Richter through that page of the magazine Domos, and then from that moment onwards he sees reality through amateur pictures, also family pictures that he had collected. And he finds out that that's exactly the way that reality offers itself to him as the hint for a new beginning. So painting has to obey something that is already existing. It has to obey to an already existing reality, and it is no longer objective. It has to become devoid of any objectivity. And Richter said, in painting, thinking equals painting. So basically, thinking develops itself through painting. It doesn't come before. It's not a prerequisite. That's something that is triggered in the very same moment in which paintings are happening. And he also says, my paintings are more intelligent than I am. These two sentences appear often in the writings by Richter, and they give the idea of this possibility that had manifested itself to him through this practice of him as the executor, as the artist that finds imagination in among his memories. There is a neutral space of images that happened by chance, and history plays a pivotal role here. And this basically leads us back to the film and to what we said, talking about the biography of Richter when he was in Dresden. So this is some kind of an inevitable appointment. Among the pictures that we have found in Richter's archive, we also find this one of his aunt, an aunt that was one of the victims of the Nazi Holocaust, and that's actually an image of his aunt Marianne with Gerhard Richter in her hands. This is an inevitable picture in the eyes of the artist, because actually the artist looks at the pictures, and by doing so he kind of investigates his own personal history. So you have his aunt with the young Richter in her arms, and the title initially given to this work of art, this is how it was presented in 1972 at the Biennale in Venice. So basically 3 years from this new annual year zero, is mother and kid, mother and baby, Mutter und Kind. But in fact, the young lady is not his mother, but rather his aunt. This would then become Aunt Marianne, and that's the picture, that's the masterpiece that he did by starting from this picture. This is a picture in which Richter sort of magnifies the picture and then uses a special painted technique that makes the picture more dramatic. So there is a very intensive tension load which is exploded in the painting, simply a painting that has been created simply by replicating the picture. And Richter in 1965 basically said that painting is a real need. The unknown frightens us, but also makes us full of hope. So this is how we accept images and pictures as a possible means to make what cannot be explained as easier to explain, or at least accessible. This is what it means working on already existing images. I mean, making what cannot be explained easier to explain, or at least accessible. And entering his biography, the tragic biography of this person, his aunt that was so dear to him that he would even saw her as his second mother. So photographs mean reality coming and selecting the artist. So through photographs he is chosen vis-a-vis the theme. And actually the artist is called upon to come to terms with history, because he comes to terms with a history that he doesn't fully grasp. And then he also says painting and being objective would legitimate me to paint, because if you were basically do enlightening things, so painting meant basically being at the opposite side of being ideological. So there was some kind of a radical escape. Painting becomes a way, a form to in a way liberate himself from the threat of in a way following the ideology. So inside painting you find sense, a sense that was not previously chosen or previously organized. These are signals that derive from the indeterminate character of the painting technique he used, that becomes actually one of the most important characteristics of his painting art. So in 1966 he introduced basically colored pictures, and so he in 1966 he also worked on a photographic shot made by himself as well, and his wife Marianne, whom he had married in 1957, is now going down the stairs naked. And that's an answer that Richter gives to a famous painting of 1917 by Marcel Duchamp, with the woman stepping down the stairs. For Duchamp, that was supposed to be the last painting of history, and then Duchamp would become the great ideologist of conceptualism, and so this is what he would term the last painting of history. Richter doesn't want to answer directly to Duchamp, but actually he showed that painting has an area within which it can find its own radical pathway, similar to that of the avant-garde movement. So there is a very interesting detail in this work of art. So the woman going down the stairs is pregnant, 3 months pregnant. So once again, biography, personal history, and life get intertwined with painting, and this kind of dimension that painting have, this birth-giving dimension of painting goes hand in hand with the birth-giving dimension of life. Also the issue, the problem of the theme emerges once again. So you have a woman going down the stairs, pregnant, and you can perceive that the theme is very important. And this becomes explicit in a different way. This is a pathway that I would like to focus on Richter's work, because it can show actually his ideology. In 1972, he brought the painting on his aunt Marianne to Venice, and there he found a very important painting by Titian, and actually he starts seeing this painting and starts seeing what he can do with the picture. And he draws inspiration. And once again, so that's the Annunciation by Titian. Once again, he meets this painting and says that he really wanted to have a piece of that period, the possibility of having the access to the sublime, the beauty of the sublime. In that period, these aspects were something embodied in the very nature of painting. So he wanted to paint the Annunciation for himself. And then again, the issue of the woman who is announced as something is really fascinating. It's a wonderful truth that is very well painted by Titian. But here again, you have the theme of the woman who bears another life in her womb and to whom an important news is announced. But Richter actually starts working on this painting and says that there's something in my head that didn't work. So this is a constant fight. And the emerging characters show that painting could not be repeated. I mean, that sublime could not be repeated again. The only thing I could do was to destroy everything by showing this limitation. So this is a painting, a form of painting that is forced to recover the time lost, is a losing challenge per se. So Richter does not renounce working on this work of art. This is one of the first different versions on the Annunciation by Titian. All of them are found in the Kunstmuseum in Basel, and there are lots of variants lots of versions to this painting, and you can see here that the image disappears. It is a blurred image, and you only see the component of light, which is fundamental for Titian. So Richter worked on this painting, thereby also opening up a whole new pathway, which is that of the abstract works of art that Richter would then create in future years with very interesting cycles like the one that is on display at the Tate Modern in London devoted to John Cage, or the one in Basel where he uses colors and the music by Bach. So the theme. This is something that is constantly kind of popping up, and also implicitly. One cannot say that meeting the Annunciation, the painting of the Annunciation, is something he works on from the point of view of traditional iconography, but the very core of that theme pervades Richter. This is one of the most iconic pictures by Richter. I think this is probably going to be the manifesto of the future exhibition that will be devoted to him at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is the portrayal of his daughter, Betty. This is a picture dating back to 1988. The very same daughter whom we had seen in the painting of his wife being pregnant. So this is a portrayal of his daughter turning her head as if she were called by someone or by something. So the theme of the woman to whom something is announced is really fascinating. So it is basically the theme of this daughter as if the daughter too were announced something new. And this would always basically remind us of one of these big sculptures on the history of art, Francesco Mocchi. That's the group of the Annunciation, made in between 1603 1608, and there is this interesting parallel that can be drawn. You can see the Madonna turning her head suddenly, abruptly, because the angel has come, and this twist in the body is something that I can see, that I can identify well in a genetically, psychologically similar way, also in Richter's conception of this beautiful portrayal of his daughter. There is this wonderful sentence by Richter: creating a painting consists in a long series of yes and no's, which is the fight, which however ends up with a yes. So it basically means having the courage of saying yes. So this topic is further developed and can be found in a portrait of 1995. This is the third wife of Richter, Sabine Moritz, actually posing for another iconic painting. The title of the painting is The Reader. So once again, the focus is actually focusing on life and conceiving oneself as basically the portrayal of the unexpected. And this draws back to the theme of the Annunciation, who is reading while the angel is coming. And as a matter of fact, the Madonna always has the Bible in her hands.
Once again, it is a quotation of the Annunciation, and again, the wife is pregnant. And then she will become the subject of a maternity scene. You can see them easily, you can find them easily. We don't have the time, but it would be really interesting to look at the details, how Richter actually read this relationship, this mother and son relationship, just like the artists of the past used to when they painted the Madonna with the child. I'm desperate because of my lack of skills. So this is a struggle against one's limitations. My hopes are fed every time there is a fragment, the initial sign of something that reminds me of what I have desired. So this incapacity is accepted since it can generate something. So at the end of this journey, we have to mention one of the last, so to speak, steps in the biography of Gerhard Richter. In 2003, Richter was living in Cologne. He was unexpectedly invited, or rather called, because he always said he did not believe in God. He's invited to make a work for the Cathedral of Köln, which was partially destroyed during the Second World War. He was surprised to be offered this work because he was not a Catholic artist. Even though in the Cathedral of Köln he had the christening of two of his children, and one of his children actually was a member of the choir of this church. So, he's proposed, he's given, offered this work. It is an extremely ambitious work. This is one of the greatest Gothic cathedrals in history, probably the most beautiful Gothic cathedral in Germany. And at the beginning, well, there are some problems because he's asked to represent the Catholic marches of Nazism. Richter first tries to do what is asked, but then he says, I cannot do that. I cannot really actually work on this theme. So he actually makes a counter proposal that is based on one of his abstract works that I didn't show you today. This abstract work, which is a composition of colors, over 4,000 different colors, matched by regular shapes on a canvas. So he would like to apply this model, but with the 72 colors that were identified in the ancient windows of the cathedral that survived the bombing. At the end, those responsible for the cathedral actually accept Richter's proposal, and we have this window with 1,000 squares. I'll show some details. It's a very complicated window. Also, to take a picture, it's very difficult to take a picture. 11,500,000 different squares that represent the colors of the pre-existing windows. So these are all variants of blue, green, red, and green. These are the reflections of the window when you enter the cathedral. Among other things, at a certain point, while Richter was negotiating with the council of the cathedral, someone says the fact that Richter shows some confidence in organized religion. A lot of artists approached the religious theme or even the Catholic Church because of religious feeling, whereas Richter takes a completely different path. He has a great confidence in the Church as an institution, as the representative of organized religion. So this is a completely new aspect, as it is shown about the artist's behavior in the creation of this window, and this singles him out from any spiritualistic attitude which is common among many contemporary colleagues. The colors are matched on a computer. Father Menneken, who was the chairman of the council, he said this is an artistic a form of artistic humbleness, the fact that he decided to use the computer to match the colors. This window, which was actually the object of so many discussions and very controversial, and even if today it is seen as a point of reference, and it actually reminds us of the work by Le Corbusier in La Tourette. Anyway, the window serves the light. So once again, the artist is in a way a channel. So as the Abbot of Saint-Genis, who said that windows should not have a narrative function. The light that filtered through the windows was representative of the light of Christ. And so there is this implicit wonder that generated these works, and this, in a way, is an experience of the sublime that you actually experience when you enter this cathedral, and you actually experience something that is typical of the windows of medieval cathedrals that were a channel of light. And Richter says, in this case, what leads me is the need for life. So this is also the result of certain skepticism, which is typical of Richter as an artist. Richter actually uses his skeptical attitude to actually engage himself in the things he does. As the Huberman said about Richter, God might be dead, but desire is not. Here are other images of the effects of the windows in the cathedral in Cologne. And I quote two more things on Gerhard Richter. Everything that the Catholic Church represents and does, everything that it demands and offers is familiar to me, and I appreciate it. This has something to do with Christian culture. It's beautiful works that sustain me a lot during my whole life. Exactly like the intuition which grew during the Christian teaching. Another connection with the church is the ability to believe. Our ability to believe is an important trait for human beings, just like drinking and eating. It doesn't matter if we believe well or not. We always believe. So this is the presence of the church as an institution. And I close with this quote that is part of an interview by Hans Hursobris. So the quote is lost qualities for a better world, for the contrary of misery and desolation. So this is what painting means. I could call it redemption, or even hope, the hope that after all I could change something through painting. So what is Richter's real goal? To do something that goes against misery and desolation, and it even says that this could be called redemption, that I could change something with my painting. So these are the great words that are generated by this process of nullification, so to speak, that was the starting point of his work. Thank you.